I want to welcome everybody to Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. We're talking about two games actually this evening. Although Coach Close is an expert on the men's side, he knows plenty about the sport of basketball, men's or women's. So we're going to be talking about the win for the Hawkeye women over Michigan State at home, plus the defeat on the road for the men. But first, before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor, Brad Van Meter, down in Des Moines at State Farm. Call him for a quote on auto insurance. Maybe it's home, renters, business, or life insurance. I know auto rates have never been as low as they are right now with Brad. Give him a call and see how he can help you and your family save an extra $1. 515-256-6480. That's 515-256-6480. Or you can visit him online at www.bradvanmeter.com. Appreciate Brad being a part of our women's basketball coverage throughout the season. You can also visit him in person down on Fleur Drive in Des Moines. Brad Van Meter at State Farm. Also, Iowa Smokehouse. Tasting is believing, whether it's their beef jerky, their meat sticks, their salsas, their barbecue sauces, maybe it's their bacon ketchup. It's all good on any day, especially on game day. Tasting is believing. Use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your total order at iowasmokehouse.com. It's iowasmokehouse.com. Tasting is believing. Well, what a day it has been. Let's get this. Can we get this off the? Why can't I get this off? There it is. There we go. We're here. All right, Coach Close. This has been a long 4 hours. A lot to talk about, man. This could have been a very uneventful day. It was not. I guess we should start with the immediate. We're not here to get your expertise on Caitlyn Clark, but I'm sure you'll offer it to us. What a moment. And she's just so cool, calm, and collected in the moment. And you know she's going to get the ball. And I don't know how else you defend her. You know what shot she wants. And she steps back, hits nothing but twine, and sinks the Spartans. Just your thoughts.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, like you said, you knew it was coming. There was nothing you can do about it. So she's been doing that for a long time. It's still amazing even when you see it, even though she's done it a lot. I was impressed with Michigan State. They really looked like when they were down 7 or 9 with a couple minutes to go, the game was over, and then they kind of hung in there and made some shots. And without that questionable call, they might have escaped. But the team with the ball last is the one that won. So it's good to have a player like Caitlyn Clark on your team when you want the ball at the last possession.
First things first, what you just said, Caitlyn Clark, incredible. She is one of the greatest to ever play the sport of college basketball. The second thing that needs to be said, that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen in the sport of basketball. You've been coaching a long time, Gary. I don't know that it gets any worse than that.
I don't know what they were thinking. I think they must have just gotten confused because, if anything, she looks like you dribbled it.
How do you get confused with that? The ball is out of her hands. She's dribbling the ball.
Yeah. It was very, very questionable. So, but and that would have been a front end of a 1-on-1, and she missed the first one. So now Michigan State's got the ball in the same situation as Iowa does with the last shot, and now maybe it was a 1-on-1. She makes it, but that was a big call.
But it wasn't a bonus. Keep in mind, there was no bonus there. They had 4 fouls.
So I thought, isn't 5 the penalty, or that was their 4th?
That was number 4. There was no bonus there.
Yeah. Well, they would have gotten the ball again, and she would have made it again, so it doesn't matter.
I'm just saying, if that happened to Iowa, we would be livid right now. And I don't blame Michigan State for being absolutely livid. And that's one area where I do like how the NBA has accepted instant replay as it relates to challenging. Mm-hmm. I don't think it slows down the game too much because you don't see it happening. But at a moment like that, boy, you wish you could go to review for something. That is horrendous officiating. But anyways, besides the point, Iowa, the women pull it out. The men did not have such good fortune up in Madison. It was a really strong first half at times, Gary. Talk about what happened. First of all, it was tied at halftime. Iowa was right there. Talk about what kind of came unraveled in the second half.
Well, I think first off, Corey, I think they really lost the game in the first half. I think they could have been up 10, 12 points. Wisconsin had 9 or 10 days off, and it looked like it. I mean, they probably averaged 7 turnovers per game. I think they had 10 at half. And they were ripe to be, they could have gone in 10, 12 points up, and now it's a totally different game. And I think that's probably how Wisconsin felt. Hey, look, we didn't play very well, and we're tied. And so let's get some things straightened out. And I think the 2 big things were Iowa fouled way too much. And I think I looked at the stats. I think Wisconsin made 9 more free throws than Iowa attempted. And you're not going to win on the road doing that. And then I think the turnovers are huge. It seemed like all of Iowa's turnovers led directly to Wisconsin points, whereas Wisconsin's turnovers were traveling or stepping out of bounds or charging. There was no transition opportunities off of turnovers for Iowa. So I wouldn't be surprised if Wisconsin had more transition points than Iowa did. And yet they still had a chance to win the game. But I think the first half was a lost opportunity. I think if they could have gotten a 10, 12-point lead, which they could have easily done, now it's a totally different game. And then two of Cricky's fouls came off turnovers. One of them was when the guy tried to inbound the ball underneath his own basket. And so it's a foul on him and 2 free throws. And the other one's when they threw the ball in the post and he fouled. So not having him for 17 or 18 minutes, that hurt. So I think the fouling and the turnovers were huge.
There was a stretch in the first half where I texted you, and I understand a long game, but I absolutely agree with you. In the first half, you had opportunities to extend it. Several times it was a 6-point lead for Iowa, and you actually had a fast break. And not to pick on Peyton Sandford, there were 2 horrendous turnovers by Peyton, one on a simple handoff, and then one on a pass up the court. I mean, just almost, I don't even know how to describe middle school type turnovers. And I know that maybe seems harsh, but and we haven't necessarily seen that issue out of Peyton Sandford. I don't know what was going on with him in that first half. He was hitting threes. I mean, they needed every one of those threes that he made. And I thought Owen Freeman was the best guy on the floor once again for Iowa in that first half.
He's terrific, yeah. And those 2 turnovers led directly to layups. So those are like 4-point plays or 5-point plays. The 2 or 3 you don't get, and the 2 they get. And when you're trying to beat a good team on the road, you just can't have that. It's just not mistakes like that. They had several of those that led directly to easy either baskets or fouls that Wisconsin wants you to get into the penalty as quick as they possibly can. And then when you make dumb fouls, instead of taking the ball out of bounds, they get free throws, and they're a good free throw shooting team. So I don't know what they ended up outscoring them. I bet they outscored them close to 15 at the free throw line, and they lose the game by 11. And I think the announcers were right. Iowa tends to shoot jump shots, whereas Wisconsin takes the ball to the hoop, and it's tough to get fouled shooting jump shots. They need to find some guys that really Tony Perkins is the only one. Cricky a little bit that can score inside. And therefore you don't go to the free throw line. And I think if you look at their free throws, I'm guessing that Tony and Cricky had almost all the free throws. I don't know if anybody else shot a free throw because it's all jump shots. And if you shoot a lot of jump shots, you're not going to get fouled. And the free throw line was the big difference in the game.
DeSante Bowen, 0 of 1 from the free throw line. Patrick had an and 1 in the first half. He was 1 of 1. Cricky had 5 free throw attempts. Peyton Sandfort with 9. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. Tony Perkins with 9. No one else shot a free throw in this game. And you're absolutely right. 14 is the difference as it relates to makes from the free throw line. And Wisconsin got there 35 times compared to Iowa's 16.
Yeah, that's the game. And they had some dumb fouls that at the moment don't seem like a big deal, but the problem is it gets them closer to the penalty. And then when you make a legit foul, instead of taking the ball out of bounds, they're shooting, and then you're just giving them points. And I think that couple of turnovers they gave them, I don't know what they score points off of turnovers, but I bet it was in double figures. And Iowa usually doesn't turn the ball over, and they had bad turnovers that resulted in point blank points for Wisconsin. And those two things were the difference. If they'd have cut those two things down, they had a shot at beating them. They were beatable tonight, and they didn't take advantage of it.
Surprise, surprise. The difference in points off turnovers is basically the difference in the game. 24 points off turnovers for Wisconsin, 14 for Iowa, and pretty relatively even on turnovers in general. Wisconsin 13, Iowa with 14. But as you said, Gary, Wisconsin a lot more opportunistic, and part of that is the nature of the turnover, like you said.
Yeah.
You can live with a travel here and there, but
right. Yeah.
The fast break point.
24, 25 points just off of turnovers and free throw differential. In a game, they lose by 11. I mean, it's got to drive you crazy.
And we don't think, as Iowa fans, you've watched more Wisconsin hoops this year than I'm sure any of us Iowa fans have. We don't think of a Wisconsin team getting out in transition, taking advantage of fast. I mean, they're just not a fast break team. They're not a high tempo team. But when you turn the ball over,
oh yeah, you hand it to them, they'll go. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're going to go.
Yeah.
I thought the play of, I mentioned Owen Freeman earlier in that first half was exceptional. What is going on with Josh Dix? I mean, I don't
know. That's a good question. I think it's just not getting into a rhythm. He just looks tight to me and not comfortable and a little rushed and things like that. He needs more experience and more success and things like that. They need some other people to step up. It's, they're not getting much out of Patrick McCaffrey. Tonight Cricky was in foul trouble, so they didn't get their usual out of him. So the bench didn't contribute a whole lot. I'm guessing Wisconsin probably outscored them by 10 from the bench too. Other than Tony and Freeman, they really, and I think Peyton made his first 3 threes. I don't think he scored after that. They did a really good job of just climbing into him and not giving any open threes. And right now he doesn't have the ability to put it on the floor. And there's a prime example. He's got to be able to put it on the floor and draw some fouls because he's a good free throw shooter. But if you're shooting threes all day long and not taking it to the hoop, you're not going to draw fouls. And he becomes a one-dimensional player. And then when you have a good defender like Kleinsmith is, they shut him down.
Frankly, I'm looking through the box score, Gary, and the box score would tell me, especially if you tell me, hey, they're playing on the road at Wisconsin, here's the stat sheet. I would have guessed they weren't even in this game. I mean, because like you said, Cricky in foul trouble, so his minutes were limited. You get 5 points out of Patrick McCaffrey on 2 makes in the first half, 0 for 4 from 3. You get 10 and a half minutes out of Josh Dix, no points. You get 6 points out of Desante Bowen, and you get no points out of Peyton Sanford in that second half after making 3 threes in the first half.
I don't think you got any points out in the last 30 minutes. I think all of those threes came in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yep.
Close to it. And he didn't get that many shots. They got to get Freeman more shots too. He's a load in there. He didn't miss many. 7 of 8, 7 of 9. He's got to get some more shots. He's coming on.
Logi gives you 0 in 8 minutes. Price Sanford gives you 0 in 6.5 minutes. Brock Harding gives you 1 3 in just over 11 minutes. Like I said, Dix, I mean, the bench for Iowa was next to nothing in this game.
Yeah.
And, when you're dealing with foul trouble, your bench better step up. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this, but Patrick, there was a play in that first half where he got a defensive rebound, and I don't even know who it was, but guy just came up and just ripped the ball away from him and stuffed it. I mean,
see, there's a good example. There's just giving him 2 points. I mean, there's one of the turnovers for an easy basket. I mean, that's a 4-point swing. They had about 4 or 5 of those. And so you're talking, if they shot the ball pretty well, if they make half of those, you take away the 10 that Wisconsin gets on the turnovers, and you get 4 or 6 points because you make half your shots. That's 15, 16 points in an 11-point game. They just take care of the ball and not foul as much. They win that game, and they might win it relatively easily. I think when they go back and look at the tape, they're really going to be frustrated because, like I said before, I think that was a game they could have won. I think a lot of teams would have beaten Wisconsin tonight because I don't think they played particularly well, especially in the first half. They were a little bit better in the second.
And what you're saying as a former coach that we all respect the opinion of should make a lot of fans extremely frustrated because what you're telling us, just to summarize what you just said, sound like an echo here. This was a very beatable Wisconsin team tonight. And yet we all agree this Wisconsin team is probably one of the 3 best teams in the Big Ten, but they didn't play well. Turned the ball over, gave Iowa opportunities in that first half. Really slow start, for a home game. Started out of the gate slow, and yet once again you're looking at this. Okay, lost by double digits on the road. How do you going back to the Patrick thing, and that's just one example. But I'm just curious, as a coach, how do you when you see that on tape, when you show a player something like that on tape? Hey, Patrick gets a rebound, gets it ripped away. How does that get corrected? Is that just a strength thing?
It's a strength thing, and it's a fundamental thing. He's got the ball hanging out there like a loaf of bread. You got to put that thing, with 2 hands and put it underneath your chin. And if they come in and reach in and get it, they get your elbow rather than the ball. And trust me, if they do that one time, they won't do it again. But if you don't, oh hell, we'll just take a ball from this kid. He doesn't protect it. That ball is yours, and you can't let people come in and take it from you. But it's more, I don't even know if it's as much as strength as it is. He didn't have it protected. He had it low, and his elbows weren't out, and the ball was exposed, and the kid came and grabbed it from him. He did a good job. He didn't slap at it. He just grabbed it. And a lot of times you'll get away with that. If you go in there and slap at it, a lot of times you might even get it clean, but the official will call a foul on you. But if you go grab it, a lot of times you can get away with it. And he just, I don't think he saw the kid, figured he wasn't going to get challenged, that far away from his basket, and he didn't protect the ball. But that should be fundamental. You catch it, you chin it. Catch it, you chin it. You don't leave it. That's just natural thing to do, whether it's a rebound or finishing a drive move or catching a pass. You just don't expose the ball. You work on that till it's just a habit.
And that's got to be debilitating in a sense. Just have the ball taken away from you like that and put it right back in. I mean, it's just completely debilitating, and kind of sends a statement, I think, from a physicality standpoint. Let's go to, we've got our Iowa Smokehouse caller. We got Tony here waiting on hold. Tony, welcome.
How you guys doing?
Good, Tony. How are you?
Good. I always defend the officials, Corey, but that was not the worst call ever. It was a horrible call.
Why am I hearing a squeaky toy? What's happening?
sorry. Let me
Come on,
put me
Tony,
back
what
up.
do you
No,
got
we're good.
going
Oh,
on
we're
there,
good.
Tony?
My daughter's there. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Between Gary's birds and your squeaky toy, I don't know that I can take
I
it.
haven't cracked the birds out yet this year, but I may have to.
All I was saying was that official was blocked. It was a horrible call, but that's not the worst I've ever seen. I will say that.
I mean, how does it get worse? I'm just saying, how does it get worse than that?
What was the one? What was the
one
one where the Minnesota Iowa game where it was right in front of the official, not even obstructed, and the player was clearly out of bounds? It was like it was a basketball game about 4 or 5 years ago. This one, the official was at least obstructed. Still a horrible call. I'm just not saying it's the worst ever.
There's also three officials on. There's also three officials,
and one of them should have overruled that 100%. I do agree with that.
But you can't call unless you see it. And so if he's blocked,
they shouldn't be anticipating 100%. Shouldn't be anticipating it. Yeah, shouldn't have called the foul. I agree with that as well. A few notes I had. Number one, one thing that goes unnoticed in the box score is towards the end of the first half, and I'm going from men's to women's game. Towards the end of the first half, Tony let the ball roll for about 4 or 5 seconds. So that way the shot clock wouldn't start until about 34 seconds when Iowa had the arrow and we're going to get the ball, they were going to get the ball to start the second half, and they had possession there. That's something that we noticed Connor did a lot when he was a point guard. And that makes a big difference. I mean, it didn't make a difference in this game, but it's just a little thing I noticed that, you gain a little bit off that.
What are we gaining off that? What are you gaining off
that? What are you gaining is that you don't have to put a shot up 3 or 4 seconds early.
I understand that. But if more teams, Gary, am I correct in saying if defenses cared about that, they would just press up for a moment and force the guy to grab the ball? I don't think I understand getting an extra few seconds on a possession. It could be worthwhile, but
no, it's getting the shot clock closer to the game clock. So you give the other team doesn't get a possession. So
that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying if the other team was,
they should have gone up there and made him pick it up quicker. But they caught him by surprise and didn't do it. So Wisconsin doesn't extend a cord very often. So
no, and they did come up because he could have got it all the way down to third. And Wisconsin did.
They saw it happening and then they did it.
Yeah. I don't know if it was mentioned, if you guys mentioned it, because I was in and out for a little bit, at about the 11-minute mark when there was 4 Hawkeyes in the lane and 1 Badger in the lane on that free throw.
So Tony's gonna try to get the squeaky.
I just muted my mic. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Respond to that, Gary.
What was the question?
I don't know. I got distracted.
About free throw line.
Go ahead and repeat it one more time, Tony. We'll try to get it this time. Squeaky toy.
I got the squeaky toy. Okay. So it was about 11 minutes to go in the game, and there was a free throw Wisconsin had, and there's 4 Iowa guys in the lane to 1 Wisconsin guy, and the Wisconsin guy got that rebound. And to me, it felt like the game.
I do remember that one. Yeah, that was late. Yeah, they forgot to check out. Well, they assumed he was going to make it, and he didn't. Yeah, no. Yeah. See, all those little things add up, and that's what'll drive you crazy watching that tape. They're gonna just wish. I mean, it's
so
amazing.
many little things.
Oh,
so many little
a lot. 15, 20 points, and I don't think it's an exaggeration.
It appears that that foul was like with 5 minutes left in the women's game. They called it for the kick instead of like the elbow. They got that girl more for the kick. Do you remember I'm talking? Well, they reviewed that foul with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah,
and they called it in a. I don't know. I think it should have been elevated to higher than just what they called, because there's her kicking her while she was down. That should have warranted a more serious offense than what they just called it as. I think they called it a common.
I didn't think the officials in the women's game did a very good job in general. I thought there were a lot of missed calls, especially late in the game, just late in the game in general, but second half. Of the 2 games, I thought somebody texted me in the first half of the Wisconsin men's game and said, "What do you think about these officials?" I said, "I think they're fine. I don't know what's wrong with the officials." The officiating got out of control at the end of the the women's game, I thought. But and I will say this real quick, and I don't want to feel like I'm passing over the women. I feel like we've had this conversation before. I tell you, you don't have Hannah Stolke tonight, you ain't winning this game. I don't care if you get 40 from Caitlyn. And there's a reason, and I know people are probably going to be upset about this. How can you not name Caitlyn Clark the player of the game? Hannah Stolke was 7 of 11 with 8 rebounds. And I mean, again, Caitlyn Clark shooting 34 times is not a recipe for success. 23-point attempts. She made 8 of them. 40 points, 5 assists. Now, part of the problem is, what do you know? You get 0 for 3 from Kate Martin from 3. You get 1 for 6 from Gabby Marshall. You get 0 for 1 from Molly Davis. Nobody else made a 3. 1-3 for Gabby Marshall.
I thought she hit that super early, didn't she? I thought that was going to get her going. Was that in the first quarter, I want to say, when Gabby hit her 3? Or was it right at the end of the first? Yeah. So I thought that was, and you could see it looked like it could have picked her up, but it didn't.
I mean, it's great that they have Hannah healthy right now, but this is a good Michigan State team. I don't know if they'll be I mean, they're not ranked right now. Not that rankings mean everything, but I don't think this is a great Michigan State team. And they nearly came into Iowa's house in a raucous environment and knocked them off. This is going to be the storyline to follow. How many games do you get where Molly and Gabby and Kate and a Falter all can't make threes? I don't know that you can win that way consistently, even if Hannah Stolke's given you 15 and 8 a night. I just don't know. Once you hit to March, you're going to have somebody else like last year where Kate and Gabby were making threes. Somebody's got to start making shots. And to that point, Gary, I don't know how much you've watched the women up until tonight, but I mean, Gabby Marshall's been putting these performances out there almost every single night. She's had one game this year, and this is a huge sample size. Now, we played 15 games, one game this year where she shot 50% or better from 3. I mean, she's consistently going 0 for 4, 1 for 6. She got blown by on the last possession, and I'm sure there's going to be people that come to her defense, feel like I'm ripping her, but she's got to make shots if she's going to be on the court at times, correct?
Yeah, I haven't seen enough really to tell you, but I know she's a better shooter than that. So,
well, wasn't it Peyton last year that went like 0 for 19 on the men's side at some point? Like he couldn't hit the broadside.
Oh, yeah, he couldn't hit anything.
He couldn't hit it. And then all of a sudden in the second half, he just turned it on. Maybe we could see that from her. It just, a game or two to get it going.
Here's the problem with that, Tony. Peyton was not starting. I don't believe. He wasn't starting, right?
No, he was a 6th.
They need, like, the women don't have a bunch of options from 3. They need either Kate or Gabby, because I don't think a Falter and Molly are going to be 3-point threats consistently. They need to be able to knock down threes when they're open. But I mean, that's why Gabby's out in the court. I know everyone's talking about her defense. She's a decent defender at times, but I tell you that what's the gal that took her to school at the end? Hageman crossed her over, nearly put her on her back on that last shot that tied the game. So if she's not making threes, it's just, Sydney Falter's a better defender. I think Kate Martin's absolutely a better defender. I think Kylie Feuerbach can be a better defender. Kylie Feuerbach, that's a storyline. 5 minutes tonight. So her minutes have slowly started to diminish as the season's gone on, and we continue to see Iowa go small ball. But I just think the recipe for success for teams playing the women, I mean, you just got to you're going to give Caitlyn hers. I mean, she's going to make shots, and you got to make life miserable for everybody else. And if they don't make the few open shots they get, you're going to have a chance.
And I just had one comment to close, and James actually put it up in the chat. That block by Clark was huge. I mean, if she didn't hit that 3-pointer at the buzzer, to me that was, oh my God, that's another level I don't think I've seen out of her. I haven't watched every second of every women's game, but that block right at the end with 30 seconds left, when it's not something she's known for, is a different component to her game that it seems like we haven't seen.
And can I tell you, when she put up that last 3 at the end, I just kind of sat there. I didn't even react because I saw her shoot it, and I'm like it's going in, and then it goes in, and you're just like,
okay, yeah. That's what you've reached. You've reached the point that unless it's something completely different, it just doesn't shock you anymore. Well, I'm going to stop her from getting the squeaker toy again. So it was my baby. So thanks, guys, for the time. You guys have a good one. She stays up late with me and she sleeps in, so I don't complain.
Oh, okay. All right.
So,
thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right.
I thought Michigan State was pretty good. They must have played a lousy non-conference schedule.
Well, they're 11-3, and they only had 2 losses heading into today.
I'm surprised they weren't ranked.
That's what I'm saying. They did not play a great non-conference schedule. I'm trying to find the best team they beat. They lost to Creighton non-con. They blew out DePaul, but that's really it as far as non-conference. Beat Richmond. I don't know much about the Richmond women's team. Lost to Nebraska the other night. So, yeah, I mean, they may end up being one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the conference. But if I was number 4 in the country at home, there's a certain expectation where you should be able to take care of teams. But there's a recipe, and those are things. As a coach, what do you do for Gabby? Do you just keep telling her keep shooting? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. Hopefully they'll start falling for her.
All right, we got
a good shot, and hopefully they'll start falling.
We got Gary for a few more minutes, and then it's his bedtime. So let's go to our next Iowa Smokehouse caller. We've got James on hold. James, welcome.
First off, you're talking about the Gabby Marshall shot. I don't know if you saw her. They showed the camera right after, and I read her lips. She said, "Thank gosh," or "finally," something like that. It was either "finally" or "thank gosh."
Well, then she proceeded to go 0 for 5 the rest of the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. I thought it was.
I think. Well, that honestly, Gary, is that if she did say that, I'm not. If she said that, is that maybe a sign that she's a little pent up?
It looked like that's what she mouthed. It just looked like reading her lips. She said one of the other. I think she said. Especially, I think she said, "Finally, thank gosh." Like that's why it looks like she said it.
Yeah, it's got to wear on you. I mean, there's no doubt everybody's telling you about it. Everybody's talking about it. It's hopefully she can get out of that. Yeah, it's a tough deal.
First off, I'll start with the men and then I'll go to the women, even though I started off with the women first. The men, obviously, I like to see the fight in the first half. I felt like they fought better than I thought they would in the first half. Coming out, at least, I felt like they played better in the first half. Second half, I feel like they just got sloppy a little bit and they kind of got a little lazy and lackadaisical. What I mean by that is, like, it just seemed like they were a little lazy on the defensive side, way more than they were in the first half. Like, the first half, they didn't seem as lazy on defense. They seemed like they were actually trying more than they usually do. In the second half, it just seemed like they went back to their old ways, if that makes sense.
I do feel like at times when they play Wisconsin, Iowa's defense just looks better because of how Wisconsin plays. Is that fair, Gary? Like, they don't put a ton of pressure on your offense.
Not early, usually not early. So they don't expose your transition if you're not any good at that.
Yeah.
Although they're maybe a little more up tempo than they've been, but not enough. So it turns into a half court game.
Do you agree with Marcus here in the chat who says we started 0-3 last year? We'll be fine. We'll make the tournament.
I feel like this team's different in the retrospect of like.
You think?
I mean, I know this team is different.
I know this team is different.
They need some wins, that's for sure.
But another couple of things I noticed too is like, I feel like Tony. Who's your player of the game for the men's side?
Would have to either be Tony or Owen. Tony played real well.
Tony, I feel like Tony played the hardest of anybody, even though Owen did have a couple of big plays too. I was gonna say that I feel like Tony played the best of anybody. He just seemed to like keep giving the effort out of it.
Yeah.
Well, other people didn't.
Right when Tony's giving max effort and he's flying around, he's helping you whether he's knocking down shots or not. And he's
even hitting the threes. He even hit some threes today.
Yeah, what were his final numbers from 3?
He had like 2 or 3.
Yeah, it was 2 of 2.
But, I mean, he doesn't.
You don't want a high volume of threes,
Yeah.
but when he's flying around attacking, I think he's a better defender than he's shown over the last year. But I think there are a number of Iowa players that I think in a different system with a different staff would probably be better on the defensive end. Knock on wood, but yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, Gary, you don't have to agree, but I think that's just the reality of it. I think there's guys on this team that have potential, like Owen Freeman's shown himself to be a great rim protector, and maybe he'll continue to be that. But I'm sure there's other parts of his game defensively that need developed. And I think
he got beat bad on the back door where he lost sight of his man. He didn't stay in good position. But
yeah, He had a nice block too, though. That block he had earlier was nice too to recover. But the next 2 games for the men, I feel like is kind of the stepping stone of how the rest of their Big Ten can go. If that makes sense, you get 2 home games, you get Rutgers and you get Nebraska home. This is kind of going to lean you towards how the rest of the season is going to go. I feel like I know it's early, but still, I feel like these are momentum games where you have to win them because they're both at home to get back on track in the Big Ten.
Yeah, if you look at their schedule, the Michigan loss was not a good one. To lose at Purdue and lose at Wisconsin, there's not going to be many teams that are going to win at those 2 spots. The problem is they came close together. The Michigan loss wasn't good, but you're right. They got to get some home wins. They can't let these home games get by them to rack up enough wins to be considered.
And then now I'll switch to the women's side for a few comments that at least I saw. First off, I messaged you this on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Sharon Goodman almost lost that game. What I mean by that is I feel like Stokey played better defense when they put Goodman in. That girl just seemed to have a field day when Goodman was in.
Well,
and I think that's why she didn't play a lot in the second half because they realized she wasn't you couldn't. To me, that was a game you couldn't really sit Stokey out because the minute you sat Stokey out, they just went to the post and we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a reason why she played, I think, 4 or 5 minutes in the game. I mean, that's, and they need one of these bigs because there are going to be games. We saw it against Kansas State where Hannah Stokey struggles physically. And again, tonight wasn't it, but they're going to need one of these bigs to step up. And the game was, these 2 teams like to get out and score, but it was a lower scoring game than a lot of people would have anticipated, although the fourth quarter really picked up as far as pace. No, I mean, you're right about Sharon. She needs to play better.
It was back
in response to Josh here in the chat. I don't know if this is sarcasm. Patrick played almost 27 minutes. He went 2 of 9 from the field, 0 of 4 from 3. By the way, he had 5 points, 3 turnovers, 3 rebounds. He's a 6'8" forward. If he's not going to give you more than 3 rebounds and he can't make a 3, and his offense is extremely limited in the half court, I mean, Wisconsin's not going to let you get out in transition, Gary. We knew that coming in. He's going to thrive in games like we saw the other night against Northern Illinois, but I don't know. Maybe there's some sarcasm here in this comment, but I don't know what.
He shoots a lot of pull-ups, and those are, when they're going, they look nice, but those are not easy shots. He missed a couple open threes that he's a better shooter, but he shoots a lot of shots off the dribble, contested pull-up, 8, 10, 12-foot jump shots those are shots that a defense will live with. If they go in, they go in. You're probably not going to get beat giving up those kind of shots, but he's got a tendency to make some of them, but he's not making many of them this year.
I got 2 more things before I get to my.
Hold on a second, James. Before your 2 more things, I got to let Gary go to bed. Real quick, I want to say this in the chat. A reminder: if you're going to use vulgarities of any type toward anyone or anything or any institution, I'm going to block you. So this will be the one warning. There's no F Wisconsin or any of this garbage. So the person that said that, I put you in a timeout like a child, and you'll be reinstated here in a few minutes. But, right. He'll be in the corner for a few minutes. And Gary, your punishment is you got to go to bed now. So
I got a few more minutes in me. Come on.
All right. Go ahead, James. We'll give Gary the benefit of the doubt.
All right. First off, my first part was
real quick, James. If he starts nodding off, you'll know you went too long.
What?
Yeah. All right. But first off, I felt like the defense on the women's side was good, but also was lackadaisical at times. What I mean by that is when they got to the zone, if you watch a lot of times too, they over pursued shooters, and then the shooters got wide open threes, and I felt like that kind of kept them in the game, or they get wide open lanes because they'd be over pursuing or out of position a lot of times when we went to zone in the women's game. And I feel like that kind of kept them in the game in retrospective. I feel like if we stayed man, I don't know. Obviously, I know Gabby got beat the last time, but I feel like our man looked better than our zone did on the women's side, at least.
The women don't play great defense.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say in general, James.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying I feel like us changing to zone might have kept the game closer than what I think it would have, because I feel like in man we have played better, especially with Stokey. And with Stokey, we played better in man. When Stokey came out, I get you on the zone. But
we did see late in the game, I think there's a part of the reason why you saw zone from Iowa is because Michigan State's got some guards that can break you down. And, again, we saw that happen late in the game. Iowa was in man. Gabby Marshall got broken. It's not just Gabby, but Iowa's not – they don't have a bunch of great individual defenders, and everybody kind of rests their case on Gabby Marshall. And she's a decent defender, given her athleticism and her size disadvantages, all that. But I think you just got to live with those things. They're not going to be able to repeat what they did last year unless they get the type of offensive production from other people.
You also got to remember too, Gabby Marshall didn't really come on until the end of the year last year.
Yeah, so we rest our hopes on that.
She didn't get hot until the end of the year last year, and then that's when they started making the run in the tournament too. So, I'm not saying this year's the same, but we know she can do it. Now, I'm not saying she's going to, but we know it's a possibility that it can happen because we've seen it already.
Yeah. No, I get you.
But Caitlyn Clark is one of the greatest players I think we'll ever see, and I think it's time to take. Obviously, I think we all know that, but it's still time just to, even if she comes back next year, you still got to, enjoy the moment she's here at Iowa and everything she does for us in the program. But I also give props to Michigan State. They fought. And to be honest with you, I thought they were going to win it there for a while once they got to up a little bit. And in the third quarter, we could not make a shot to save our lives. And I kind of thought maybe at that point it was a little scary, but.
Well, James, appreciate your call as always. Always a breath of fresh air to hear from you. And we'll probably talk to you here. I don't even know when the next game is. When's
Saturday for the men? I know they play Rutgers Saturday. I don't know if the women play before that though.
Okay. Well, if we don't hear from you before that, we'll talk to you Saturday.
Yeah, talk to you later.
Thanks, James. There is a question in the chat that I want to get to before you go off, Coach. Ben says, if you were coaching the Iowa men right now, who would your starting five be? That's a good question, given the fact that we've now had a decent sample size.
I think that is a good question. I would say, I don't know if there'd be a whole lot of change than what they're putting out there. Some of it depends on how things are going on in practice, but I think it would be about that. I don't know. I think you're hoping that Patrick's going to play better. He's a fifth-year senior, and he's definitely struggling. I think as a coach, you're hoping, he's played a lot of basketball. You're hoping he's going to come on. He would probably be the one that maybe you could consider. I think everybody else, I don't know where you would change it. So that might be the only change I'd make and maybe take some pressure off him. But I can also see him playing just because he's like I said, he's a fifth-year senior. So there wouldn't be a whole lot of change.
Bob is asking about Wisconsin scoring on cuts to the basket. Tell people the difference between Wisconsin's offense and Iowa's offense and the motion. Just can you kind of give people an idea of how these two coaches differ as far as offensive philosophy?
Well, I think Wisconsin's got more cuts that are going towards the hoop, whereas Iowa in that motion, it's more coming out to the top. Now they do some curling and they do some back screening, but there's more, I think generally speaking, there's more cuts. There's more back screens going towards the basket rather than down screens coming away from the basket, generally speaking. Wisconsin does a really good job of cutting. They do a really good job of getting the ball in the post. They're one of the best teams in the country getting the ball in the post. They want to touch the post. And then they do a really nice job once it's in there of moving, not just standing there watching the guy. And a lot of times what happens is the people off the ball turn and look at the ball and they lose sight of their man. And that's when they back cut you and get easy shots. So they're very good. They work at that. They're very good at that.
RTI Threads player of the game this evening for the men, guard Tony Perkins with 25 points. Tony had 2 twos on 2 attempts, 8 of 14 overall from the field, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 3 steals. So he's active on both ends. I go back and forth. I think Owen Freeman might be their best player long-term. I think Tony is probably their best player right now in general. And they need more consistency out of Peyton Sandfort. You talked about it, made 3 threes early with a couple weird turnovers and then just lights out the rest of the night. We saw his brother Price miss an easy layup in the first half. Those are ones freshman or not, you got to make those.
Yeah. Especially on the road. You got against a good team. You can't afford to miss those. I think Peyton took 3 really good shots early, made them all. And then he took a couple of rushed threes. And then all of a sudden And then they did a really good job on him. So they just chased him and gave him no room, and there's no counter to that. And that's where he's got to learn to put the thing on the floor and see if he can draw some fouls. He's strong. He's athletic. He's got to get more out of what he's got than just stand still shooting.
The Hawkeyes will be back. The men will be back on the hardwood on Saturday. That's an important game.
Huge game.
Talk about that home game against.
That's a must win.
0-4 if you lose.
About it. Yeah.
With home losses to Michigan and Rutgers would not be where you want to be sitting right now.
No.
With a lot of road games in front of you and some more difficult home contests. Gary, sweet dreams. We will we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you Saturday. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll talk to you over the weekend.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate Coach Gary Close here, as always, with us, and I'm with you at least for the next 20 to 30 minutes talking about the Iowa men and the Iowa women. Hopefully we're giving somewhat even time to both. Angela in the chat. Both teams didn't play their best. We got lucky to win the women's game. Yeah, I mean, lucky or good. What do you want to, what's the word you want to use? I mean, when you have Caitlyn Clark, I wouldn't call that luck. The officiating was bad at the end. I mean, that call, again, maybe I'm being hyperbolic when I say it was one of the worst calls I've seen. I just don't know how you possibly call a clear ball fake followed by a dribble and hack a shooting foul. Now, in the NBA, had Molly gotten hit and then threw it up, maybe. She didn't even do that. She just got hit on the dribble and she got knocked to the ground. Very strange call. I don't know where the officiating got off making that call. Before we get to Doug, who's next, and we got Ryan as well, I want to give a shout out to RTI Threads. They're sponsoring our post-game coverage, including our players of the game. Of course, we have two tonight because of the men and the women. Cooper DeJean, he is a partner with RTI. Visit his website at cd3lacesup.com to shop his apparel, his merch. Also, Aaron Graves, the grave digger from Gowrie, Iowa. Check out his stuff over at rtithreads.com, and partnerships with Carson Shire, Aiden Hall, Zach Lutmer, and more, all available at rtithreads.com. Let's go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. We've got Doug. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
I watched 4 hours of basketball with my father. Can't beat that. Blessed. First 2 hours.
It's quite, you know what? Caitlyn treated us to quite a treat there at the end.
Yeah, he called that. He said it's going right back to her. And I go, there's no way she always does that, but she does that.
She does.
Yeah.
She's incredible. Hey, Doug, she's incredible. She is absolutely incredible. And for her to make those shots time and time and time again in big moments, like I said, there was not even any doubt on
that. Yeah.
It just
went in. Yeah.
What was your reaction when the shot went in?
I just looked over at him and said, yep, that's what he does.
That's exactly like my. In other words, you didn't go nuts or anything. You didn't turn the table,
well, again,
over.
I'm not as invested in the women, but
sure.
And there's I really, like I said, there were some things I wanted to say about that. I really liked that they had the gold out. There was 15,000 there. We don't know what Caitlyn's going to do next year, but Hannah Sulke is a good player. And I just hope for her next 2 years, no matter what Caitlyn does, she deserves to be on a good team and have fan support, and so do all the younger players. One of my questions for you, because I don't follow them, do they usually go that small? Because that O'Grady and Goodman didn't play very much. I don't know anything about them. That just seemed weird to me after watching the men's game, which seemed very physical, and Wisconsin's bigs kick our bigs behinds. I'm trying not to cuss, but don't want to time out. But go.
I mean, what I'll say about that, Doug, is last couple games we've seen the women go smaller, and we really in the last game I thought was more matchup based. I'm trying to think who they played just the other night, Minnesota. But again, we saw maybe a little bit of a struggle from Sharon in that first half. Addison O'Grady's numbers, her minutes have been dwindling since the beginning of the season, really since she started in that exhibition game in Kinnick against DePaul.
So they only play 7, really.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, Hannah Sulke was out for a good portion of time with a knee injury. So now that she's back, and I think she's finally this is probably the lineup. I've made the comment. I think this is their best lineup, playing Stolke at the 5 and being able to get out and run. You can run a lot easier with Stolke at the 5, but here's the problem, Doug. Got to be able to make threes if you're going small.
That was my again. I have a hard time because men's game size wise, but what's Martin? Is she's a guard too? Is she a good 3-point shooter? I don't know anything.
About she's spotty, but she's called the glue of this team. I thought Kate was good at times tonight, but again, nobody was good from 3. I mean, I read the numbers earlier, but the only other person made a 3 was Gabby Marshall. She made 1.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot about Gabby just not being on, and again, I hope again. I know people have had what was it? James said that when she made that first one, she's like, "Yes, finally," or something like that. I trust me, she probably was very relieved to get one to go. One thing I wanted to say, and this is not a knock on the women, it's more a knock on Big Ten officiating. Because both games had about a 10 free throw shot discrepancy, and meaning the home team got 10 more free throws than the away team. And I'm not saying either way that the rest. I mean, you talked about the last call there with the girl doing the pump fake, then taking the dribble, and they called it a shooting foul. But it definitely seems very clear that home teams do have not a huge advantage, have an advantage with the officiating, in my opinion, women or men. And
and here's the problem, Doug. All the Hawkeye fans out there that are wondering why Gary and I made a point of bringing that call up. If the roles were reversed, we would be absolutely ticked. Like, it would just be like, how can they do this? So the objective, it was an awful call. Michigan State's head coach had every right to be livid. And I give them credit. Michigan State, that could have been kind of a debilitating situation. You send a girl to the free throw line for 3 free throws. She missed one of them, but then they came right back down and scored and forced Caitlyn Clark to be the hero. By the way, just in response to this comment in the chat, no, I don't have any vendetta against. I feel like I've had to explain myself on this for the last 2 years. But the comment here about Gabby Marshall, she's made 208 3-pointers on 39% shooting for her career. That's very good. Defenders can't leave her alone. I believe this is reflective of today. I believe for the year, she's shooting 26%. 26%. Okay. Yeah. She doesn't post anybody up. She doesn't beat anybody off the dribble. So I'm simply saying, just like we said with Jordan Bohannon and all our other beloved Hawkeyes, if Gabby's not knocking down threes, she's kind of a liability on the offensive end. That's all I'm saying. I'm not being, I like Gabby Marshall. I like Gabby Marshall a lot. But I'm simply saying from a basketball standpoint, she's got to knock down open shots. She's not doing it right now.
I thought you were going to go. Now I'm going to transition to the men. That's where I know more about the men. Like I said, I barely know the women's roster, but like I said, seeing Kate, I'm not sure if Caitlyn is Pistol Pete or Larry Bird yet, but she's one of the two, and both are not a bad comparison. But she's transformed the women's game, and I just, like I said, I hope that the support continues no matter what happens next year, because girls like Hannah and others deserve that support. And, I like I said, I don't know. One thing, because I don't want to get on the PMAC bashing, but if you ask me who I was going to change for the starting lineup, I would put one that Bowen or Brock in and have Patrick coming off the bench, because 3 rebounds, whatever he had for points, at this point, and I feel for him so much with not having a thyroid, having to take all the pills he has to take, the mental health issues, all of those. I have mental health issues. I feel for him so much. But at some point, you just have to be realistic and telling the guy, you're a 5th-year player, you can't get that ball ripped out of your hands. And go ahead.
Well, I first of all, yes, and I don't want to make too much out of one play, but that was just a play that stood out to me. Did it stand out as much to you as it did to me, Doug?
Especially how aggressive they were. And one thing that gets me kind of upset with Patrick, because I'm a pretty physical guy whenever I play basketball, and I'm just church league and JV stuff. But he doesn't just fade away. He'll go in, do that pivot, and do a fadeaway. I'm like, you're never going to get a foul if you do that. If you're never going into the guy.
Pat does not like contact. Doug.
No,
Pat
exactly.
McCaffrey does not like
Yes.
contact. Tony Perkins likes contact.
Yes.
There's a reason why Pat McCaffrey, and you're right, everything you just said about his health and the thyroid and absolutely, like that's, I don't doubt for a second that's changed his body makeup and all that. I get that. But here's what's also true. There's a reason why he's a 6'8" forward who's consistently getting 3 rebounds a night.
Yep.
We're not being mean. No, he's just not that guy. Like, he's not a guy who's I don't know what the totals are right now, and I'd be curious to look this up. What do you think Tony Perkins, and Tony Perkins is a guard who's played a lot of who played a lot of point this year.
Which means he has to get back.
So, Doug, tell me how many rebounds you think a game Tony's averaging.
4.5 to 5.
Tony is averaging 4.5 rebounds per game this year. 4.5. That's actually a really good number for a guard.
Well, I asked you last time if you thought Tony was a good rebounding guard, and you said he could be.
He had 4.1 rebounds per game last year. He's at 4.5 this year. They need him more. I'd like to see that number go up. But now, do you want to guess what Patrick McCaffrey's per game average is?
4.2. Well, this year, probably 3.8 or something. 3.8.
Well, let's see here. Patrick McCaffrey. Let me pull this up here. It's been a long day, by the way.
Oh, you're fine.
What is going on here? Why is my computer trying to do this to me? What did you do to my computer here, Doug? What did you do to my computer? Okay, Patrick McCaffrey's stats for the 23-24 season. Patrick right now is averaging 3.4. He's a 6'8" forward.
That's worse than I thought.
He's a 6'8" forward. 6'8" forward, averaging over one rebound less per game than the 2/starting 1, Tony Perkins. I mean, that's just it's just the difference to me. It's just the difference between, because Tony's no longer than Patrick. Tony's got long arms. Patrick's 6'8". He's a long kid. He doesn't like contact. Yeah. He's not looking for contact.
Yeah, and it's very obvious because you see, like I just explained, he goes into the lane, it fades away. You can't, at least if you do that, you can't ever draw a foul. The one other point, and we've already talked about the next 3 games, how pivotal they are for the men. And I know a couple other people are probably on the queue. And one of the other things that really gets me about the men, and I call it, and I was with my dad and I said, the wheels came off. It's every game, and every team has runs. And that's not the issue. There's a point in all 5 or 6 losses they've had where the Oklahoma game where I was at in San Diego, where it just seems like something churns and the team loses whatever little mojo they had and they lose confidence. This game was 50-49, I think, with 11 minutes to go. Brock just hit a 3, and that's when the wheels came off. They go down and have a couple of easy layups. They had a huge dunk. They had a turnover, and all of a sudden it's a 9-point game, and they can't come back. And I just don't know what it will take for them when the wheels do come off, because it will happen in most Big Ten games. And most people think Iowa's a bad team. They are what they are. But most Big Ten games will come down to a 4-minute segment. And those 4 minutes, you have to answer, And I don't know if this team is mentally tough enough to answer that. And I don't know who the player is. I think Tony did a good job. Peyton just disappeared in that stretch. He had 9 points in the first half and just disappeared. The team needs to be tougher. And that's all I'll say. I mean, I don't know where toughness comes from. I say heart, and it's their choice over the next 3 games where they're at, Well,
first of all, let me just say this, Doug. I've been critical of the men's team this year, and I think you're being critical of the men's team, rightfully so, even as a big Hawkeye fan like yourself. The season is not done, and the season's story has not been written. If they go, and some people may think this is completely illogical, but if the Iowa men from here on out, they go on Saturday and they beat, let's see, who do they play Saturday? They play Rutgers. If they beat Rutgers on Saturday and they're at home, Nebraska. Then they go back and they beat Nebraska. They're a challenger, 11-2 right now. Yep. But if you win those 2 games, then we're at least saying, okay, Minnesota's not been very good in recent years. They got a good record so far, but they're not ranked. I haven't looked at their schedule, who they've beaten. I don't think they scheduled a real tough non-con.
Nebraska didn't either. I mean,
but there's an
Nebraska's
opportunity.
close.
They got an opportunity to win 3 straight here.
Yep.
And here's what I'll say, Doug. If they don't win 3 straight, they're probably not going to make the tournament. And even if they win 3 straight, they might not. But they've got to win these next 3. Gary said this Saturday's a must win. I'd say almost these next 3 are must wins. Because if you're going to win one on the road, it better be against like a Minnesota, and you better not be dropping games to unranked opponents at home.
Yeah, the one dude that always seems to have an issue with me is the 2 road games which they're most likely to win are at Minnesota or at Penn State. After that, I don't see any of the other ones being winnable. Maryland struggled a little bit, but I don't think we're going into the Xfinity Center and winning there. As far as the home games, nothing's must win. It's just if we want to go to the NCAA tournament, they're must wins, and that's what most of you want. And that's, like I said, I'll support my Hawkeyes no matter what. I hate if we're not going to be an NCAA tournament team. I predict us at 18-13. That might not happen.
Yeah, Doug. So we can't talk about the women anymore because Pierre says that. Let's see. I'm sorry. He says we can only talk about the women, so we're not allowed to talk about the men. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. We're not allowed to talk about the men, so you can only talk about the women from here on out, Doug. Go.
So that goes back to my point here. And again, that actually gets me upset. So I've been an Iowa fan since November 6th of 1993. Hardcore Iowa fan for the men's team. You asked me last year, when will I jump on the bandwagon? Or when will again, if you're only supporting the women because they're winning right now, I don't think you're a true Hawkeye fan.
No, I get it.
If you weren't supporting them 5 years ago when Sam Logic was there and other women, I've been following the women since Jenny Ellis or whatever, the Oklahoma coach was there because she was a Dowling person, just like Caitlyn. If you're doing that, that doesn't say anything about me. Again, I will cheer the men's team on. I actually look forward to buying tickets off of the secondary market for $5 or $10 to these men's games. But again,
have you been doing that, Doug? You've been driving down to Iowa City for these games?
We've done 2. We've done the Maryland, Baltimore County, and we did Arkansas State. And we're planning on maybe doing Saturday. If not, we are going to do Nebraska. And there's some that are very cheap. So I believe it. Yeah, there's some that are like that are, it depends on what site you use. But again, all I'll say is if next year Corey has a show after a women's game and he's getting half the viewership, that says a little bit more about you than it does about the Iowa athletic program. So I hope we get the same support next year. Again, if you don't,
real quick, let me just say this, Doug. You're talking about viewership. Let me just take this opportunity to throw this in there. I know people are frustrated with the men. I know people are excited about the women. We have got some awesome shows coming up for both sides, for both the men and the women coming up, regardless of game results. So just people, I hope people can appreciate, because it's not, I understand that this is a post-game show. We're reacting to the game that we just witnessed, but we have an opportunity, thanks to people like Coach Close and some other people that will be joining us, to really connect with people of the past, people that represent these 2 programs. And I hope people will, like you said, I'm echoing exactly what you said, Doug, stay loyal to both programs. I know it's not always easy watching these men without an alpha offensively, without a consistent defensive style or fallback, whatever you want to call it. But there are going to be reasons to get excited, even about this show the rest of the year. And they will win games, Doug. Now, will they win enough to make the tournament? We'll find out. But they got to win these. I think they got to at least win these next 3.
And the last thing I'm going to say to you, Corey, is thank you for giving me a platform where I can talk about the Iowa men's basketball team. If anytime you don't want me talking about them, don't put me on.
I just ban you? Can I just ban you if I'm Doug, if I get tired of it? Can I just ban you? Can I just block you?
You can if you want. I hope not.
I'm not gonna. You're fine. You're absolutely. Who did you say is ripping you in the chat? Who's ripping?
I'm not going to get into it. The same guy always says something about something I always say, and I've turned off the chat most of the time. I said, again,
you don't have to listen, Doug. You don't have to pass an IQ test to get in the chat. Just remember. And there's some people in the chat. There's a lot of very intelligent people that are in the chat, but there's some people that just want to be keyboard warriors and rip anybody and everybody because they have no self-respect and nothing else going on in life. So just keep that in mind.
And again, this is about basketball, and I apologize if I ever make something personal. I felt I was being too hard on Patrick there and getting personal. Again, these are games. These are real people. I'm a real person. Corey's a real person. Tom Caker's a real person. Don's a real person. We have, but thank you. I will look forward to talking to you hopefully after a win against Rutgers. So.
Okay, Doug. Appreciate it, sir. Yes, follow me on Twitter. I'm at From the Hawkeye on Instagram and Twitter. And I apologize in advance. I know these dual post-game shows, for those of you that are here to talk exclusively about the women, I don't know whether to apologize or just say, hey, stay tuned, because we rarely have these back-to-backs. And when we have these back-to-backs, we're not doing a post-game show for the men during the women's game. So we're going to do a joint post-game show. So please be patient. Know that we've got special guests coming. Coach Close is with us for the men's games throughout the year. We've got some great guests coming for the women's basketball team down the line throughout January, February, and March. So just stay tuned. I know that's kind of a little bit disjointed when you're talking about two different games and two different sports, two different teams, different set of issues. And we're only here for about an hour. We're a little over an hour today, but appreciate everybody in advance for being patient. Again, at From the Hawkeye on Twitter and Instagram, at From the Hawkeye, the Storm, I should say, on Facebook. Please make sure to like the video as well, folks. That does help immensely. And before we go to our next caller, I want to give another shout out to Iowa Smokehouse. And look at this. We're breaking in a new graphic for the conference play here, the resumption of conference play here in early January. Tasting is believing for Hawkeye basketball, whether we're talking about the men or the women. Visit iowasmokehouse.com and support your Hawkeyes with a purchase of some awesome snacking products, whether it's their beef jerky, their flavorful meat sticks, or their delicious tender steak bites. You'll never need to look anywhere else. You'll get free shipping on $50 orders. Visit iowasmokehouse.com and use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your order. And again, you spend $50, you'll get free shipping to your doorstep. Never got to go anywhere, never have to look anywhere else. Iowa Smokehouse, tasting is believing. Speaking of Iowa Smokehouse, David is in our chat. He says, I'm eating my Iowa Smokehouse original cheese smoked beef stick as I watched both games. He's in Oregon, but lifer in Iowa for 50 years. Go men and women. And so David, look at David buying the Iowa Smokehouse product in a different state, all the way out west. But Oregon is now Big Ten country with the Ducks joining. So thank you, David, for supporting From the Hawkeye of the Storm and our good friends over at Iowa Smokehouse in Albia. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call line. We've got Ryan on hold. Ryan, welcome. There it is. Look at Ryan. Hey, how's the summer sausage treating you, Ryan? That's one thing I've not. You get the garlic.
Absolutely.
I can smell it through the microphone.
Oh, it was fantastic on New Year's Eve. It was one of the hits of the evening, to be honest with you. So thanks for the tip. I wasn't aware they had it, but I'm certainly aware now. And it was only like $5. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Great value. Great stuff.
Great value. Yeah. Anyway, as far as the men's game, I'm sure Coach Close, had he still been on, would have fallen out of his chair, because I was going to say I had no problem with the officiating in the men's game, which is really peculiar given that it's in Madison and that's a rarity. But I think we just flat out beat ourselves. And I think a lot of the reason why I put a little bit of this on Fran, because I think we've seen a little bit of a pattern where we play tit for tat with a good team. We're right in there. We were tied at halftime. And then they go on a little run. And I think Fran, instead of maybe calling a timeout when we get down 5 or 6, waits until we're down 10. And usually we'll then play more or less tit for tat from there, and that run of 3-4 minutes becomes the difference of the game. I just see a reoccurrence of this. Regarding your question on the starting lineup, and I do not mean to be a smart aleck saying this, but I'm honest, kind of serious. Would Fran get some repercussions from Mrs. McCaffrey if Patrick was benched? I think he's a logical sixth man in this, and I would love to see Brock Harding get a shot, see what he can do for 28 minutes a game. I still am a believer in Desante Bowen as well, but I do not really like the starting lineup where Tony is playing point. Tony was phenomenal, by the way, today, but I think he needs to be more of the off-ball guy that can shoot and also attack the rim. What are your thoughts, Corey?
I agree with you. And Owen Freeman, he wasn't a starter a few games ago. He is maybe the most important player. I think Tony's the best player right now, given the maturity level and just everything he brings. But Owen's going to be a star here. They need to get more out of Josh Dix. You mentioned Desante Bowen. Desante finished the night with 6 points, 1 assist. He needs to give him more. But Josh Dix, one shot. I mean, I almost thought I saw a typo here. He played just under 11 minutes. Josh Dix was 0 of 1 from the field, 0 of 0 from 3, 0-0 free throw line, 0 rebounds, 0 points, 0 fouls, 0 assists, 0 turnovers, 0 steals, 0 blocks. I don't know that I've ever seen a stat line like that for a guy that plays 10-plus minutes. I mean, he's just got to get involved. I mean, he's a better offensive player than that. And he's not even, he had the one shot, one mid-range 2 in the first half that clanged off the rim. He's a better shooter than that. So I don't know what's going on with Josh Dix. But here's the thing about it. Like, you hear the phrase live and die by the 3. Here's where Iowa's at right now, in my opinion, Ryan. They're not live or die by the 3 like maybe the Frederick, Bohannon, Wieskamp team was. They're live or die by the Sanford 3. If Sanford's not making threes, who else is consistent from outside right now? Ain't nobody. Ain't nobody. Like right now, Dix is not showing confidence from outside. You can't count on Patrick. He was 0 for 4. Cricky's not shooting a bunch of threes. He made 1 tonight. Freeman's not shooting threes. Tony was 2 of 2, but Tony has been very inconsistent from 3 throughout his career, Ryan.
Right.
Desante Bowen has not proven to be a good 3-point shooter. Brock Harding shot 1. I think he's got the ability to be like, they don't have shooters right now. That's why Josh Dix, I think he might be the most important player that nobody's talking about, because I think he's got the potential to be a really good 3-point shooter. I just don't know if he's not. I used to think he's just not being aggressive enough. But after watching tonight, I'm like, is he in his own head? Or, I mean, like when I see that stat line all the way across, it's not just 3-point shots. He's just not getting involved.
Correct. I think what really it was interesting hearing Coach Close, because I think Fran would do himself well taking a page from Greg Gard and working the post when you got Cricky and Freeman down there, and worry a little less about chucking up jump shots and threes. What really frustrates me is we got 4 experienced starters, right? You got 5th-year Cricky. I know he played at Valpo, but he's a Big Ten player. You got Sanford in his 3rd year, and then you got Tony in his 4th and Patrick in his 5th. And generally, and in my opinion, arguably as good as any of them is the freshman starting with them. That should be a lineup that is the makings of a solid NCAA tournament team. It should be. What worries me, and I've made this comment definitely to friends and maybe even on this show, if you remember about 10 years ago, back when like we had Aaron White, Woodbury, Marble, we went about 11 deep. And, the Zach McCabe's coming off the bench, but playing a lot. We made the tournament barely. I believe we were the play-in against Tennessee that year. And it was too many mouths to feed. There really weren't terribly great defined roles. And when you look at, I hate to say it, but you look at some of the great Wisconsin teams, they win 7. Maybe the 8th guy got 5 minutes, but the roles were very defined. And I'm afraid that we're kind of running into that where Josh Dix gets double-digit minutes and doesn't do a whole lot, where Patrick today gets 27 minutes and does about nothing.
Well, let me just add this in too. One guy I didn't mention who I did, and I guess phooey on me for even suggesting or counting on a true freshman to come in and do something. Of the 4 true freshmen, you probably know where I stood on this preseason.
Sanford.
I thought Price would come in and give you threes. I thought at the least he's going to come in. He's got length like his brother. He shot at such a high rate at Waukee. He was a scorer, but I mean, he's at least going to give you threes. He ain't giving you nothing right now. He ain't giving you threes. On the night, he was 0 for 1 from 3, 0 for 2 from the field. He's only logged 6.5 minutes tonight. So there's another one. Like, I'm more apt to look at Josh Dix because he's over a year into the program than I am to look at Price Sanford. But like, if you could get those 3 guys to start making threes and get confident from outside, it changes everything. And then
but we also have too much redundancy on this team. You got a lot of, what are the two? Peyton Sanford at least is a pretty good rebounder, but you got the 2 Sanfords, you got Dix,
Harding,
Patrick. They're all wings. Now, Harding. Harding's a legit point guard at least, and he can shoot a little bit, but we just got a lot of redundancy. Just spot shooters really. You don't really have the guy who attacks the rim and drives outside of Tony.
But Patrick is not a spot shooter.
No, but what is he? Is what I'm saying. He's certainly. When you look at coming into the year, and this was assuming at the time that we can't expect Owen Freeman to be a starter, right? We're looking at, let's say it's October 15th, and you're looking at the roster, and you're kind of like, well, you would probably say Cricky at the 5, Patrick at the 4, Sanford at the 3, yada, yada. There's no way Patrick's a 4. And he's, so he kind of plays a wing, but he's not really a shooter. He can drive to the hoop a little bit. He's long, but what is he? I'm very disappointed in him this year, for a 5th-year senior.
My concern heading into the year was similar along your lines of concern as it relates to who is going to be the alpha, right? That was going to be the question. Who's the go-to guy? And for some reason, the media fell in love with it being Peyton Sanford, and I got nothing against Peyton, but I have just never seen him fulfill that role.
No.
And so I'm not surprised that he's not, but some people just thought he would. And then I looked at the best players on this team, Tony Perkins, Peyton Sanford. We didn't know Ben Cricky was going to be one of the 3 best players. I think he is. We didn't know Owen Freeman would be, but like those 2 top dogs, Perkins and Sanford, to me, they have both, they've been good at times, but both those guys have been known for inconsistency in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
Especially with their shots.
And the thing, earlier this year, I saw a mock NBA draft that had Peyton going like 48th overall, in the 2nd round. And I'm like, what?
I don't know where, can I just say that? I don't know where that comes from. I don't know. And I'm not usually critical of mock drafts because I certainly don't know anything about the NBA draft. I don't know how he's possibly going to defend in the NBA. No. And I mean that seriously. He's not Duncan Robinson. Duncan at least could move for a 6'8" forward who could shoot. I mean, that's the comparison we like to make. Oh, look at Duncan Robinson. Robinson's a good defender. He became a better defender as his college career and his NBA career started, but Peyton lacks a lot of lateral quickness. I would just be really surprised if he can make it at the NBA given some of those flaws defensively, but what do I know?
And real quick on the men, Cricky getting in foul trouble was a huge factor because there's just not enough consistency behind any of them, to withstand him sitting on the bench because he got 4 fouls.
What does this comment? What does this comment mean, Brian? Lady Hawks is not a thing, so stop saying it. What does that mean?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay, all right,
no idea, none. Speaking of the Lady Hawks, one thing that I've kind of noticed, Caitlyn is one of the greatest passers I've ever seen, but she does get a lot of turnovers, and not that she didn't last year, but I think one thing she probably could think about a little more is we don't have Monica's hands anymore. Monica could receive those lightning quick passes, and I just don't see Hannah or Sharon Goodman in particular being able to handle quite the lightning, passes that she dishes out. She really will try to thread the needle, and you got to be ready. And that's one observation that I definitely have. The other one that I had is I thought maybe, outside of Caitlyn, we were 1 for 10 from 3, and I thought this was. I kept waiting for Taylor McCabe to come in and give us a non-Caitlyn 3-point spark, and it didn't happen. Final comment I have is that was the second worst call I've ever seen in a basketball game, and believe it or not, I'm saying this, and it went our way. Obviously, Crooked Courtney with Keegan Murray at Rutgers will always take the cake, and I can't imagine one ever exceeding that one. But officiating, I was thinking they just let the women just hack the crap out of each other with no calls. Caitlyn probably should have been to the foul line 10 times that game. She's not the only one. And, there were some bad calls on both sides, so don't get me wrong. But
by the way, Evan disagrees with you, Ryan. He says that Hannah Stolke is quick and can catch almost any pass. The difference is, here's where I'll kind of split the difference on this and balance perspective.
Hannah's the best on the team at catching them, I will say that. She's no Monica.
Well, she's also not been healthy all year, and Monica also is not. Like, they're different players, and Monica was a back to the basket type of player. So, like, it just works differently. They work differently off of Caitlyn, and Hannah's not a back to the basket type of player. So
she's a 4.
She's a 4 who's playing 5. She's playing the 5, and that's fine. I think they can get away with that more often than not. But they don't have a back to the basket type of player, and they don't have a natural post right now that they can rely on. Because, unfortunately, Addison O'Grady, Sharon Goodman are not. I don't think putting those in. I think Lisa's, at least as of right now, has come to the conclusion they'd rather go small and give Caitlyn more support in the backcourt than use a spot in the starting lineup on a Sharon Goodman or an Addison O'Grady. Unless they're going to need defensive girth inside, and they're going to need that at times. They're going to need a true big. But I think more often than not, they can get away with Hannah playing the 5, especially defensively.
Last question real quick. Do you think Ava Jones will ever play for Iowa?
Is Ava Jones, so here's a good question. Is she on the bench? I never see her.
I'm not sure.
That's a great question.
I can't get a ticket, so I don't know.
I don't have the answer to well, I should know. I'm supposed to be some form of the media. I should know that. I don't. I'll ask the question at some point. I'm trying to we need to get Lisa Bluter on the show or Jan Jensen, but I don't see her. I don't know that I've seen her with the team, and I've been at a couple of games this year. Well, how many games have I been at? I guess I've just been at one game. I was at the Iowa State game. Am I right in saying that? No, I was at the DePaul game, and I didn't see her in Kinnick. And like I said, I didn't see her in Hilton. So I don't know where she's at, but anyways, I don't know. I'd love to see her. I mean, what a story. Brandon says he sees Ava Jones there every game. Okay.
Good.
Great. Fabulous.
Well, today's shot helped because I'll tell you what, between yesterday's debacle and today, it was very difficult. I'll be there to counsel you when John Budmeyer becomes our new offensive coordinator.
I'm going to need that counseling.
Because that's football. And
that is football.
That is football. Yeah, and 0.92 to nothing against ranked teams. That's football.
Well, the defense got to play better, Ryan. Defense you can't give up 92 points.
I agree. But they can't be on the field the whole time. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be a long off season. It's going to be a long off season.
Maybe there's going to be plenty of stuff though with staff changes, and there'll be stuff to talk about. I hope that Marco Lainez's development will become a storyline.
I hope so.
Hey, Ryan, I've been beating the Marco Lainez drum for the last 2+ years. Have I not?
You have, and so have I. I've been right there with you, and you can appreciate Kirk for all he's done and the way he's elevated the program, and still also have very little trust in his decisions when it comes to particularly the quarterback position and play. We win different ways, and it would be nice to get back to competency in that. And I remember Coach Patterson even saying, hey, when you got a very shaky offensive line, it's very important to have a quarterback with legs. And I think we saw a glimpse of that. I'm not ready to anoint Marco Lainez at this point either. Nobody is, but he showed something.
He showed enough to give people hope. That's what he did.
And we'll take whatever hope we can get, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Have a good night, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you on Friday as well. That's when the women play Rutgers. The men play Rutgers on Saturday. Esther, I'm doing good, Esther. Always asking me how I'm doing. My day went well. Thank you, Esther. Appreciate that. Evan, listening to the women's postgame show, Raina Harmon said how good it was that Gabby got out of her slump. I wouldn't call one of 6 getting out of her slump. 16.7%. Michigan State, very good receiving votes for the top 25. Yeah, I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm just saying they're not top 25 heading into the game, and that's simply a result of they didn't play a great non-conference schedule. But maybe they will finish top quarter of the Big Ten. And so this will be a good win, but a win that Iowa should have had at home. They're number 4 team in the country. Carrie says, I would love to see you interview some of the older Hawkeyes too. Anyone from the 90s, Andre Woolridge, A.C. Earl, Kent McCausland, etc. We did have Kent McCausland on, Carrie, and I believe we had A.C. Earl on. Am I right in saying that? We had Kent. I know we had Kent on. I think that was 2 years ago and lead up to the Iowa-Richmond NCAA tournament game. But we can certainly work on those names, Carrie. Absolutely. And like I said, stay tuned because we've got some fun ones coming up. Angela, thank you for the compliment. Looking forward to future shows. Absolutely. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate the support. Drill MVP, why go with the suit and tie combo? Well, first of all, this is just a shirt and tie. I had a meeting before this all. So, Drill MVP, you're with us now. Welcome to the show. I had a meeting earlier today, and I stayed dressed up, so I figured I'd come somewhat. I have a tie on. You just can't see it because of the microphone.
Well, it's all good, Corey. It looks very professional in that. So,
thank you, sir.
I think I want to talk about both the men and the women here today. For the men, I don't even think the frustrating part is they've lost 6 out of 14 games. I think it's the way they're losing these games. These are non-competitive basketball games. And what I mean by that is they're losing by double digits.
Well, today was competitive. Yes, but today was competitive.
I understand that. For the most part, it was. It kind of got out of hand a little bit late. Like, with 3 minutes to go, I thought Wisconsin looked like the better team down the stretch for sure. But, I mean, against Iowa State, they got torched. Against Purdue, they got torched. Against a bad Michigan team. I mean, this might be one of the worst Michigan teams in a long time. They lost by double digits at home. That's alarming.
Bad loss. No, you're right about that.
And I think that's the frustrating part. Because if you want to see growth and progress in a team like this, because we're in the beginning of January, it's already 2024, you would expect these games to be somewhat closer, them to take the lead, them to have stretches of runs where they get hot. But I just didn't see that today.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, and Darrell, just so you're aware, I was at that game in Hilton, so I understand exactly what you're talking about when you say non-competitive. Lost by 10 to Michigan at home. That's not a good Michigan team. Lost by 25, and it wasn't that close at Iowa State. Lost by 19, and it was not that close at Purdue. And they got beat pretty badly against Oklahoma. 12-point game, but I mean, it wasn't really that close late either. Oklahoma led by, let's see, as many as 22 in that one. So no, you're absolutely right. That's why we keep saying this is not a team that looks very good right now. But I also am hesitant to throw in the towel because they've got 3 winnable games ahead of them, and they probably need to go 3 for 3 because that would put them at 3-4 in the conference. And that's, they got to be above 500 to make the tournament with the non-conference schedule they had. So, but they got to win these next 3.
Completely agree with you. And Corey, I know Iowa has a problem with the big man position in both the men's and women's, but for both the men's and women's this year, it feels like they're being more hurt by it this year than previous years. Does that make sense to you?
Say, which sport again are we talking about now?
Both of them, both the men's and women's.
Well, I mean, they're young. They're very young on the men's side, and yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, they don't have a back to the basket type of player like Monica Sonano that's consistent enough. I don't really know Sharon Goodman and Addison O'Grady. I don't really know what they are as far as post presences. They're big, but they don't run the floor great. Certainly not like Anna Stolke does or like Monica Sonano did. And of course, Sonano could post you up and put her back to the basket. The men are just young. I mean, with Owen Freeman, he's got a bright future ahead of him, but Riley Mulvey hasn't developed. Josh Agundale never developed. So yeah, there have been some swings and misses. In fact, I had a conversation with someone earlier today that I won't say who it was, but somebody who very well connected to the program. And I made the comment to this individual. I said, the one big disappointment I have right now with Fran, I mean, we can talk about the defense. We can talk about the NCAA tournament. But I would have just thought they could have profited more off of the Luka Garza era. There's 2, back-to-back National Player of the Year, and they haven't really had any success at the 5 since. Now, we're starting to see a glimmer of that with Owen Freeman, but man, they have really not taken advantage of a superb generational guy in Luka Garza.
Right, and it's especially frustrating because with this transfer portal era, it feels like you could sell that to big men. I mean, I knew I was looking at that big man from Utah Valley. I feel like you should be able to easily get that type of player based off the
thing about that, Darrell. I would say the same thing about the Caitlyn Clark era. Monica Sonano graduates. My thought at the time was, man, it should be easy money to go get somebody in the portal that wants to play with Caitlyn. Well, the problem is you got LSU throwing money at these ladies, and Iowa does not have the big donor support for the women's basketball program, and NIL came on at the wrong time. If this was 2 years prior, they probably, even without the portal being in full swing, they probably still could have gotten somebody via transfer that would have wanted to play as the 5 behind Caitlyn Clark. But it's just a unique time period that we're living in, and it's and these players are playing in, and these coaches are coaching in, recruiting in, and those would be my disappointments from each side. I get the frustration.
Right, and my biggest concern for the women's team, and now this is a very 1% type problem for the women's team because they're elite, they're great, they should make the Elite Eight. But my biggest concern is Caitlyn Clark may run out of gas with how much the load is being on her. Like last year, I felt like if she had a bad game, she had a great number 2 player, Monica, who could do the work for her and carry for stretches and even games at time. I haven't seen anybody show even the signs to take over a game for even 15 to 20, a half even.
Well, I think Hannah Stolke has shown flashes of that. The problem is she's been out with injury. And last couple games, she's been the definite number 2. But without being a back-to-the-basket type of player, she's forced. I mean, I think her game is a little bit more dependent on the fast break than your typical 5, right? Because she's a 4 playing the 5. So, if she can become a little bit more comfortable scoring in the half court, that's going to help them. And again, like I said earlier to Gary, they've just got to get people like Gabby Marshall, Kate Martin, Sydney Falter, Kylie Feuerbach to knock down threes. When they're open, they have to go in, and they're going to be open at times because of Caitlin Clark and Hannah Stolke. They're going to be open at times, and right now they're just missing them.
Right. So we're about at the halfway point in the season, Corey. So any expectation changes from you from your preseason?
I didn't really make preseason predictions as it relates to the men. I thought they were probably like an NIT team. I'd probably stand by that. Right now they probably wouldn't even make the NIT, but I think they'll get things figured out to an extent. Do I think they're good enough to make the tournament? I doubt that, but I wouldn't dismiss it at this point. It's just too early to dismiss that notion. As far as the women are concerned, I've got some concerns as it relates to what you said, the load on Caitlin Clark and the 3-point struggles. But I still think that, the NCAA tournament is so hard to predict. It's a one and done type format. If they can get somebody hot at the right time from 3, they could make a run to the Final Four of the national championship game. That's what a generational type of athlete in Caitlin Clark does for you.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. Again, I've framed it as it's a very great problem to have when you have somebody this good. Your concern is who's the number 2. I mean, most people would die to have a number 1 as good as her, but if she gets hurt for a bit, how are they going to perform? Unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game. Or what if she gets in a slump where because of how her shot volume is, what if she's only shooting like 30% from the field or something like that for a few games? And Monica, because of her position she played, I felt like she was that reliable player, could get a few buckets for you. But I haven't seen much of Iowa's number 2 this year, probably because of the injuries and stuff. And too many games to watch, Corey. I'm sure you're watching New Mexico versus Colorado State right now. So
I am. I am, Drill.
You got it on the big screen, I'm sure, just over to your left, correct?
You got it. New Mexico and Colorado State, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's a big matchup in the Mountain West, 12-1 versus 12-1. Somebody asked
is that CBS Sports?
Fox Sports 1.
Oh, it's FS1. Okay, good for them.
Yeah. So somebody asked in the chat about Kate Martin. What are your thoughts about her game? And could she be the number 2, I guess?
I mean, I think they need a big. I think it needs to be Hannah Stolke, but they need a number 2 in the backcourt. Yeah, Kate's. I mean, I would think she's the logical choice. She has been. I don't want to say she's been inconsistent from 3. That's just not her game to be a takeover type of player. But she can drive, she can cut, she can make threes when she's open. But she's been inconsistent from 3. I think that's fair to say. She was, I think, 0 for 2 tonight, 0 for 3 from 3 tonight. So, yeah, I mean, she's probably the most important player after Hannah Stolke, maybe the most important player after Caitlin Clark, frankly, just because of her leadership and what she gives you on both ends. She's one of their better defenders, and she's a fabulous leader. She's just not somebody who's going to take over the game. I saw the comment earlier that she can take over a game. I don't really know about that. I mean, that might be going a little bit far, but I love her game. She's fabulous at what she does, and she's a smart player.
Okay, final thing I'll say is, as somebody who likes women's basketball, who watch teams they're not even a fan of, I'm not a fan of this streaming thing, this whole Peacock thing. I'm not going to pay a subscription to watch women's basketball. I feel like I'm in the heavy majority. I understand the men's game is going to do more rating-wise, but can we throw it on an FS2, a CBS Sports? I mean, it's Caitlin Clark. Do we have to pay the subscription?
I'm telling you, a lot of Iowa fans are paying that subscription just to watch Caitlin Clark. Had nothing to do with the men.
I understand that, Corey, but for us casual fans out there, I think it would help grow the game. Put her on a national audience. Put her on CBS or Fox or ABC for at least a few games.
Well, they're on a lot of national networks this year. I mean, most of their games are nationally televised, either on Big Ten Network or there are some on Fox, FS1. I mean, more than we've ever seen with Iowa women's basketball.
I guess, and people.
It's only $5.99 a month.
listen. It's that one is only $5.99 enough. $5.99 a month, but added by 10 or 15x, it gets expensive doing it that way. And that's all. That's my only point. And if you're a casual fan that doesn't care about Iowa as much and just wants to see a great player, are you willing to pay the $5.99? I just want the game to grow because I think women's basketball has that chance of being the next great product with the way they're able to shoot the ball. To me, it's becoming almost more enjoyable than the men's game because I can relate to it more than the men. I can't, dunk on a 10-foot rim, but I can shoot a 3-pointer. And seeing the women do that is very impressive to me because some of these girls can shoot 40, 50% from 3, and it's amazing.
Yep, I agree.
Anyway, Corey, that's all I got for you. And a final thing I will say is, guys, we need to hit the like button, okay? There's almost 200 people in here. How many points did Iowa score today, Corey? Scored 72? We should at least have 72 likes, right, Corey?
The women scored 76. The men scored 72.
I think the people should know their task, right, Corey?
148 likes is what we need to aim for. 76 plus 72. So, Daryl MVP, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for calling in, and we'll probably see you over at the Mark Rogers Show. How about that?
Will do. I'm sure we'll talk about all of Iowa's great offensive elite output against Tennessee, right?
I look forward to it. Thank you, sir. All right. Kelly says, my biggest issue with the women is the lack of shot fake from anyone not named Caitlyn Clark. Well, Molly Davis did get away with a shot fake, and then they called it on the foul call, the phantom shot foul, right? I mean, it was a foul, no question about it, but it wasn't a it wasn't a foul in the act of shooting. But anyways, yeah, I guess I haven't noticed that as much. You're probably right, Kelly. You're at a lot more games than I am. Let's go to, I think, our final caller of the night. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Chris from Wyoming. I'll keep
Chris,
it short. I'm
hold
good.
on a second.
I missed. I couldn't watch the women's game, so I'm not going to comment on that. I listened to it.
Okay.
But I want to comment on the men's game.
Okay.
Maybe someone else has already brought this up. But what was glaringly apparent to me watching the men's game was the passes that were stolen, and it's like fundamentally our guys are standing out there flat-footed waiting for the ball to come to them. I could have picked off the pass. You know what I mean? They're just standing there. You don't just stand there and wait for the ball. You move to the ball. And they did that consistently tonight. How many turnovers did they have? Excuse me, I'm getting emotional. How many turnovers did they have from these bad passes? They just picked them off.
Yeah,
I thought, that's just. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say they shared the wealth with turnovers. Nobody had more than 3, but they totaled 14 as a team. So 3 from Patrick, 3 from Cricky, 2 from Cricky, 2 from Freeman. 3 from Perkins, 1 from no, I'm looking at the wrong line. I'm sorry. 3 from Patrick, 2 for Cricky, 2 for Freeman, 2 for Perkins, 2 for Sandfort, 1 for Bowen, 2 for Harding. So they shared the wealth there. I mentioned this earlier, Peyton had a couple of really bad passes. There's often multiple things that go into turnovers. Someone's not moving and it creates a difficult situation where it's hard to keep a pivot foot down, or maybe somebody puts you in a bad position and you end up with a charge. As Gary said earlier, Chris, you look at what happened with the fast break points off of Iowa turnovers. I mean, for the game, Wisconsin scored 24 points off of Iowa turnovers. That's way too many. And typically, the Iowa men play very clean basketball.
And these passes that they were picking off were out front. There was nothing between them and the basket once they got that pass, and consistently our guys were standing there flat-footed. It just blew my mind that they weren't. There was no dynamics to it. I guess that's what bothered me. It's like down to fundamentals. That is something that should not happen. And it just blew my mind. I mean, a really good team doesn't do that,
It's never.
That is.
You're never too old or too experienced to work on the fundamentals. I think any collegiate or pro player at any level of any sport would tell you that. And
right.
There were some breakdowns on the offensive end, and there seems to always be breakdowns fundamentally on the defensive end. So they got things to clean up. I mean, they got a opportunity to get back on the winning track on Saturday. They need to. They've got to win Saturday and moving forward. So hopefully they'll have those things cleaned up. They've got a little bit of not an extended break, but they get Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they play Saturday.
Okay. Well, that's my 2 cents. If I had Fran's number, I'd call him and tell him.
Well, I'll let him know. I've got him on speed dial. I'll let him know.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Appreciate the call. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. Almost 2 hours. Boy, we burned through 2 hours pretty quickly. The Iowa men falling on the road at Wisconsin, 83-72. Behind a strong performance from Tyler Wall, strong performance from Stephen Krall. Very balanced scoring for the Badgers. AJ Storr had 16. Klesmit had 15. They actually turned the ball over. 13 turnovers for the Badgers. Unfortunately, Iowa had 14. Wisconsin much more opportunistic with the turnovers. 24 points off turnovers for Wisconsin, 14 for Iowa. Iowa's bench struggled too, just 9 combined points for the game. Our player of the game earlier mentioned this was Tony Perkins, 25 points, 25 points, 4 rebounds. I'm having problems reading box scores today. I think it's because of all the games in the last couple of days. Tony Perkins, 8 of 14 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, 7 of 9 from the free throw line. Owen Freeman had another double-double today, 14 points, 13 rebounds. Ben Krikke dealt with foul trouble, ended up with 10 points. Peyton Sanford had 9, was shut out in the second half. The Iowa women with the win over Michigan State behind a 40-point night from Caitlyn Clark. 40 points for Caitlyn, 5 assists, did have 6 turnovers, and just 1 rebound. That's odd to see from Caitlyn. 14 of 34 from the field, 20 3-point attempts, made 8 of them. Perfect from the line, 4 of 4 from the line. Hannah Stolke had 15 points, 8 rebounds, 7-11 from the field. And those are the only 2 players for Iowa in double figures. Shot just 42% for the game, 30% from 3. Only got to the free throw line 15 times. The Hawkeyes escaped against a good Michigan State team, partially because of heroics from Caitlyn Clark. They've got to get Gabby Marshall, Sydney Falter, Kylie Feuerbach, Molly Davis, Kate Martin going from 3. Telling you folks, against the better teams, they're not going to be able to win this way. I don't care if Caitlyn scores 40. I don't care if she scores 45 or 50. They're not going to be able to beat the best teams in the country without production from some of these other wings and guards. They've got to be able to get 3-point shots down. And right now, nobody's making threes except Caitlyn Clark. Made 8 of them tonight, including the game winner, and the Hawkeyes defeat Michigan State 76-73 at home. I will be back with you Friday. We've got Iowa and Rutgers on the women's side, and then Iowa-Rutgers on the men's side on Saturday. Stay tuned for the week ahead. We've got football coverage. Even though the season's over, we've got off-season coverage starting, and it will be going for a while. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about for the next few months, and we'll have some hires and some personnel changes to discuss as well, including some live shows. Appreciate everybody being here, folks. Please support our sponsors, including RTI Threads. I want to give them one final plug before we log off. Cooper DeJean Apparel at cd3lacesup.com. Aaron Graves, Carson Shire, Aiden Hall, Zach Lutmer merch, all available at rtithreads.com. We thank Iowa Smokehouse. We thank Brad Van Meter of State Farm. We thank RTI Threads. We'll talk to you soon.